Welcome to Shorty's SuperCoach. What's going on, guys? A week's a long time in footy. Shorty's had a haircut and we've got heaps of footy to talk about as well. So we're going to wrap up the match simulations. I'm telling you, it's a weird old pre-season. We've got random-ass match simulations with 8 quarters. How does that work? Don't know. Minimal stats. KO just filming out of a potato. It's really difficult to get a read on what the hell's going on. I don't know about you, but all of a sudden I was like, cool, match sim is here, and then boom. Oh shit, they've played all 8 games. Cool. Right. All right. I'll just read the recap then. So this is just going to be an absolute ramble. I'm going to go through each game, take a few bits and pieces out, but I'd love to hear your feedback because I'll definitely miss a couple of players that you like the look of, so let me know below. Would really appreciate that. And yeah, it's close now. 16 days. My eyesight's going already. Unbelievable scenes. I'm getting pumped now. It's really getting close. Can't wait for this week's matches. We'll dive a bit deeper into those in the review style next week. We'll have some stats. That always helps to decide what's actually going on out there. But before we dive into SuperCoach, let's talk a little bit of golf. And played golf on Sunday. Played out at Clifton Springs. Wasn't the finest hit of all time, but played okay. 18 holes is a different beast. I mean, I can play 9 holes and stay like dialed in, but 18 holes is a roller coaster of emotions where you just got to control the anger levels at times. And look, the weather was a bit dicey as well, but hey, we were having fun. We're about 12 holes in. Anyway, it was pretty busy. Like Clifton Springs, a lot of old retirees, Sunday, they're out playing golf. Anyway, me, Jonah, Jordan, solid golfers, but not the most skilled. We're getting better. We're working on it. Anyway, we've got this group of 4 old people behind us, and we've sort of been up behind a few, been getting held up ourselves for most of the first 10 or so holes. But yeah, okay, these oldies behind us had to wait a couple of times, whatever. It's just what happens on the golf course on a busy Sunday. Anyway, we're about to tee off, and it's one of those ones where the green is right next to the next tee off. And my mate was hitting, and they hit, and they were walking off. I'm like, oh, good idea with the umbrella, mate. That came in handy because it was raining at this point, and they had their classic golf buggies with the umbrella over the top. I was like, oh, came in handy, didn't it, mate? And he just gave me next to nothing. He was like, if you boys could just speed things up a little bit, we've got competition coming over the next couple of holes. I was like, bro, come on, man. Do you reckon if we could speed it up, we would? It's not an intensity thing. We can't bloody hit anything under 5 at this point in time. So I was like, gee whiz, we are in some select company here. The oldies are absolutely getting up us. But have you ever had that feeling out on the golf course when you're just a young fella trying to have a bit of fun and you just can't help but feel you're disrespecting the natives of the golf course? I wasn't even trying to piss them off, and I've pissed a few people off over the journey in sporting events. Shorty's temper just sometimes gets a little hectic, but anyway, we got through. What did I hit? Just to paint a picture for Shorty's golf game, 101. So that's about 30 odd over par, and I was somewhat happy with it. So that gives you a bit of an idea of my golf levels. But I'd love to hear your funny golf stories because a lot of random etiquette stuff happens on the golf course. But hey, let's dive into the first game, shall we? In absolute random order as well. And Eagles versus Port. I think Elliot Yeo, from everything I heard, yeah, wow. I was about to say from everything I heard, was a good option. Yeo, Sheed and Allen were glaringly absent. Oh, throughout 2022. So, Shorty, hold your horses. Hold your horses, mate. He must have played well. Rosie was the classiest player on the ground. You've got to lock him into your team, don't you? If you needed any convincing, he's looking great. And Jason Horne-Francis. A lot of centre bounce attendance and resting forward. He's got to come into your thinking. Look, he's not necessarily a guy that I can see myself starting. I just think it would take a fair big jump. And he does have a few other Port players in front of him, but it does seem like he's probably going to get more centre bounce time than I maybe first thought. Definitely strongly consider. Campbell Chesser, I think he's a guy that's got to be a strong chance for round 1. Do we get a bit of talk on Elliot Yeo here? Oscar Allen as well. He's a guy that's going to be potentially a bit Charlie Curnow style, young key forward, very promising, and missed a lot of footy. He could be a guy that at a pretty nice price. I think he's about 210. And this is the section that we'll mainly delve in. So Elliot Yeo, Tim Kelly come with price tags, but are far well placed to deliver after much improved summers. So I've had this debate with a few people. Now, Elliot Yeo, yeah, I get it. He's injury prone. I know. But we've got 36 trades or something. Now, all we need is 6 to 8 games, which will give us 4 to 6 price rises, whatever it is. And at that price, you know he's going to score. Roll the dice, I reckon. Roll the dice. If he is having a good summer and you know he's going to score, I am taking that every day of the week. Yeah, of course, sometimes it could be disappointing. And he could get injured in the second term and give us a 39. That sucks. But if we had like 24 trades or 30 trades like we have in the past, I'd be saying, no, too risky. But we've got so many trades. I just think it's worth the risk. And same could be said with Nat Fife. I just think it might be just a slight shift from guns and rookies where you can maybe take a few more punts on a few of these guys. But I don't think there was too much in terms of port. Like Rosie, Butters is a guy to consider, but Rosie certainly put his best foot forward, and Hawthorn Francis as well. So they're probably the main ones out of that to consider. But I definitely I'd be starting Rosie, I'd be starting Yo. And then, the rest, you can probably take your pick. Okay, we are back. And there isn't too much more frustrating things than you film the first 7 or so minutes of video and it wasn't even screen recording, even though you pressed the fucking thing and it actually went for 5 seconds and randomly decided to stop. So Shorty's just spent the last 5 or 10 minutes just calming himself down after swearing at his laptop for a couple of minutes. So anyway, I couldn't be bothered recording it again, and I thought I told the story pretty well, and I'm a bit tired, so I thought I'd just put it up there. So my apologies, it's just audio, but we are back in business with some actual footage. Let's take ourselves to game number 2. Crows and Freo, and there was definitely a few that I had my eye on here. Just the way like Darcy and Jackson is, it's not necessarily SuperCoach, absolutely SuperCoach. I mean, a little bit of relevancy, but I was interested to see how they went. Sam Berry just looks like he's going to continue to do what he did last year, and maybe even better. If he still had that forward eligibility like last year, he'd be just about a lock, I think. Tackling machine. Rory Laird, there's no reason he could, no reason he'd do anything different. Going to be a star again. And Nat Fife. Now, it does look like he is going to spend a fair bit of time forward. Is that going to do it for you? I'm a little bit hesitant just with the position and the role. I know that he'll dominate at times and he will play some midfield, but I'm just slightly concerned as to whether he can. Well, he'll score well. He's a superstar. He'll find a way. But I don't know. I'm just almost preferring some others. At this stage, he's not in my team. I'm a touch worried about this. I mean, look at that. Nat Fife was a natural in his new role as deep forward. And yeah, he kicked goals, but historically, he doesn't kick a stack of goals. I really wanted to see him play more of a 50-50 split in the midfield. We might learn a little bit more this weekend. But at this stage, I know he's popular, but I'm happy to pass. I mean, like I said with Yo before, if you know he's going to score well, he's in a defined position that is really nice and friendly for SuperCoach, great, take the risk. But Fife, you got that worry about his body, and I'm just not 100% on his ability to score as a forward or how much midfield time he'll get. So at this stage, I'm happy to watch on. Johnson could be an interesting guy if he gets a chance for round 1. Bit of a young gun. Jordan Dawson, just dominant. The Crows were less concerned about Jordan Dawson, who finished early as a precaution because of a knee complaint. I heard he played pretty well. Maybe he didn't play the full game. But and Andrew Brayshaw was on managed minutes after an illness last week. Okay, fair enough. But yes, like we said just before, fantasy tempters, that's where we want to really put all our focus into. I think Sarong and Brayshaw, I reckon it's their midfield. I reckon they're going to really bounce up. Sarong, probably not for Classic, but could be a great option for your draft team. Slide a bit potentially. Berry, same can be said, not for Classic, but could be a real good chance for your draft. So nothing too crazy to go about that game, more so the Fife discussion. And Saints, they have a lot to talk about, Deuce and Kilda. I was looking at Marshall. I want to see what Hunter Clark was doing. And here it is. here's the one. If you're going to take a little shorty nugget away from this video, it's Wanganeen Malira. I think he could average around 90 this year. Does that mean you roll the dice on him? He's awfully awkward, and he doesn't even have dual position, but just keep him under your hat and snare him late in your draft. And I'm telling you, maybe, just maybe, I'll consider him for my classic team, because he looks like super silky smooth off half-back. And what I love to see for half-back flankers is when the team almost goes out of their way to handball it to the player that is in our SuperCoach sides, and he just goes, little effective kick, boom, link up 1-2, tasty dish. So I'm thinking, just keep him on your radar. He is a real good chance to be, because he's highly touted. So he's a bloke that we expected to come on anyway. And this role could just be absolutely dreamy for his for his SuperCoach scoring ability. Anyway, Petrarca and Oliver, they're just doing their thing. That's just what they do. And Gawn and Grundy, the way they combine is going to be super interesting. I'd love to comment on this a little bit better if I watched it. I sort of skipped through the game, was sort of watching certain parts of it. I'm happy to steer clear of both of them. They'll find ways to dominate. They'll have their days. They'll have one player will probably have a slightly better role than the other, depending on the day, depending on the part of the season. But I don't really have any interest in starting them in my team. But if you see it a different way, let us know. And the real thing with Marshall is I think he's an absolute lock if there's a sole ruck. I'm hearing St Kilda do really want to play him as a sole ruck, despite all the carnage that is falling down around them, particularly in the forward half. But just want to see it really in the actual pracky match this week. I really want to see how it goes. So Caulfield played some minutes. You know, he's definitely a guy who could be a handy little option. Filippo, I think he's got to be in your forward line in terms of a rookie. Really looks like he's ready to go, and certainly did himself plenty of favours in terms of getting a round one berth. Windhager and Owens, look, playing forward, that wouldn't have lit your fire if you're one of those Windhager players or fans that have really pumped up his tyres. So, yeah, I would say just watch him closely, but a bit concerning in the role there. Let's take a look down to the old fantasy. Oh, what was that about Brayshaw? Brayshaw played off half-back. Oh, yeah, I guess no Salem. That checks out. Yeah, pretty much the stuff that we had already mentioned. Filippo, he's under 200k for SuperCoach. Definitely got to be a strong consider. So, out of this one, I reckon Marshall's in my team. Jack Steele looked really good as well. Hunter Clark didn't do too much, and I know he's not very popular, but I just really think he could be a real midfield star one day, but we've been waiting a while. And then Wanganeen Miller just popped up and said, "G'day, mate. Consider me." And the D's, maybe a couple options, but we probably already know about them, and keep a close watch on how Gawn and Grundy combine. Even if it's just for footy in general, it's going to be one of the more interesting ruck combinations that we've probably ever seen. I will timestamp this one as well, but trying my best to get through it somewhat, not quickly, because we like to be thorough here at Shorty SuperCoach, but somewhat timely fashion. Trying to keep this one under half an hour, but we'll see how we go. Brisbane and Sydney, certainly Dunkley, Ashcroft, they'll be in our sides, won't they? Do I even need to talk about that? I just really think they're absolute guns. And I think they'll be fantastic for Brisbane, fantastic for our sides. Don't know if Sydney had stacks to consider. Errol Goulden is just a sneaky little improver, I reckon. I don't think I've got the guts to go with him because there's probably other options in the forward line around that premium price that are better options. But just a real sneaky improver that could just boost his average ever so slightly. I think he's going to get more opportunity at Sydney, and he's a beautiful kick. I reckon he could slide under a couple of your mates' eyes in draft, and you just pick him up, a bit of a slider. So definitely keep him under your hat. I don't know if there was too much else. Let's see what the old fantasy tempters. Cam Rayner off half back. That's interesting. But gee, he's burnt us many times, hasn't he? I don't think there's any reason for us to try and consider him there. Neil is strangely not as popular this year. It seems like everyone's just going, Oliver over Neil. So I'm not sure exactly why, but I think Neil's had a couple of niggles by the looks of things. But not too much to report in terms of SuperCoach relevancy that we didn't already know in this game. So this is probably one that I can just skip on by. Blues and Pies. Nick Dacos, tasty dish, looked fantastic by all reports. I'm going to start him. I know some people might be a bit scared by the lack of footy he's played. Will he get more attention? All this sort of stuff. But I'm happy to go with him. At this stage, it takes something pretty full on to not go with him. And a little preseason supplemental selection. Alex Chincotta. I think I pronounced that right. Staked his claim for a potential round 1 debut. And I think it was Cowan as well. Was it Cowan who maybe has a chance? Don't know. But I'll talk about Tom Mitchell in a moment. Just see what else. Lockie Cowan. Yeah, I think there definitely is a position on half back or down back for the Blues. So I'll be interested to see who snares that. Doherty played half back. Should get some midfield time as well. I think he's a handy little point of difference down back for your side. Definitely strongly consider. Now, I really want to talk about Tommy Mitchell. Now, from what I heard, Tom Mitchell didn't get insane centre bounce time. This is just all a match report that I heard from someone who was watching. He was in the centre bounce, but Collingwood really spread their centre bounce attendance over a range of guys. You know, DeGoey, Dacos, Crisp, Adams, Mitchell, Pendlebury. You know, there'd be blokes that I missed. So, an engine room that bats really deep. Now, is that going to be ideal for Mitchell? We want him at as many centre bounces as possible. So, I've just cooled ever so slightly, but going to be watching Tommy Mitchell real closely this weekend. I still think he's a strong chance for my team, but just cooling the Jets ever so slightly. Really going to be one of those guys that I'll watch probably as close as anyone this weekend coming up. Harry Sheezel, wasn't he fantastic? He would definitely be a bloke in many people's sides. Now, all I'll say is a young player who'll spend a bit of time forward in a team that's going to lose a lot of matches. He probably will have some inconsistency about his scoring. A bit Josh Rochelle-like. I'm not saying they're the same type of player, but similar role, similar team in their development. You're going to get the ebbs and flows, but gee, Sheezel looked fantastic by all reports. And North Melbourne have plenty to think about as well. And look, as we know for the Tigers, Taranto and Hopper, if they're not in your team, get them in your team. They just have to be in, looking $1 million, looking like they can really fit into that side and do some serious damage, which would be beautiful for our sides as well. And then you've got blokes like Will Phillips, Luke Davies-Uniacke. If you're looking for someone unique, he's every chance to take his average up towards that 110, a bit closer. He's in that mould of Tom Green, guys that are really exciting us, and that next generation midfield. Otherwise, I'll see what the old fantasy... Oh, that's right, Jack Siebel. This is why I like just sort of sifting through. So Jack Siebel has gone back to defence by all reports. What's it say here? Jack Siebel went head-to-head. Yeah, interesting. From what I heard, he was taking some kick-ins. Now, again, that just raises another real interesting point because, as we know, as a forward, generally averages about 60 to 75, depending if he's in the peak of his career or last year. And as a defender, can easily average 100. So it's pretty wild. Is that role exactly the same as the other year? Does Aaron Hall or Luke McDonald or any type of those guys take a bit more of the limelight out of the back line? Again, he'll be a big watch this weekend for many of us. Will Phillips has to be a really, really strong consider. It does seem like he's finally going to show us what he's got at AFL level consistently. And like I said, those two Tigers, it really does seem like a no-brainer. You got Hopper at a real nice price, guarantee average 95, and Taranto available as a forward. I reckon he averages 100 at least. So definitely get him in your team. Moving on to the last couple of games, and this takes us back to the Cattery, one that I obviously had a pretty big interest in, and gee, the Cats certainly showed their new recruits in fine form. Bose did us plenty. Interesting role though. I kind of thought he would play maybe half-back midfield, but at times he did play midfield as well, but also half-forward. So a bit random. I think he definitely has to be really right in the mix for your back line. Really nice price. But at this stage, I wouldn't mind getting a closer look with a Cats side that'll probably be a bit more full strength. They were pretty full strength, but just a more legit setup. I'd really like to see where they actually see him playing. Bruin also looked great, but not really one for our SuperCoach teams. And look, I think the Hawks, they're going to be young and they're going to find it tough. I think Warple is, not that he lit the world on fire the other day, but he's going to get so much opportunity in that midfield, and I really think there's a strong chance to return to an average in the 90s. Yeah, he's not the nicest kick, he's not the cleanest bloke of all time, but he tackles, he's in and under, he's going to get plenty of centre bounce. Will Day also got a better centre bounce, and he's a guy I really like. He's got that quick step, he's elusive, bit more outside, now getting that chance inside as well. Price is a bit awkward. Defender, he's a bloke that I think I'd love to have in my draft team. Don't know if I want to roll the dice on him in my SuperCoach Classic, but he could be a big improver. High draft pick, plenty of talent. We've seen it before. Could get that opportunity to show it more consistently. And yeah, I think in terms of the Cats, there's actually probably not a stack to talk about for Geelong. I mean, Tommy Stewart's just going to keep doing what he does. Asaba Radigalea, I've had a few questions about him, and he actually looks like he could be in for a spot. I originally didn't think he would be, but Jack Henry going down with a fairly serious foot injury, which I hate, will open up a spot for Sav. And it's amazing when he's forward, he couldn't clunk a thing. But when he's down back, he's just plucking everything. He's about to pluck a seagull. So I think Radigalea actually could be a handy option. He'll be a bloke who chucks in the odd 40, but he will ton up every now and then, or at least give us an 80 with those intercept marking abilities. So definitely keep an eye on him and that Cats round one side. And yeah, there wasn't too much else that I really want to discuss for that one. Cats look good though. Shorty's not getting ahead of himself, but the Cats looked very, very nice. Bombers took on... Who'd they take on? The Giants? Gold Coast. My mistake. I don't think the Giants played an official pracky match, but what I did hear from the Giants match sim was that Tom Green, tasty, looked fantastic. So I think he's going to be in my starting team for sure. The Dons, there was some interesting... Davey, has to be someone that could be a little round one bolter. Humphrey was certainly a guy, and Flanders as well, who I didn't really know much about. Flanders, aside from his name on that list for so long, starting to come through with the goods. Charlie Constable as well. Halfback flank, really looks like he could get some opportunity. I never thought he'd be a halfback flanker. Thought he was just, tried and true inside mid. That's all he sort of had. But he actually seems like a good chance to find a round one spot finally for Gold Coast. So that could be interesting. So this game was a bit more of a, talking about your young guys, and even Hollands as well could be a chance to get a bit more midfield time. I heard he was playing a bit more on a wing. Probably not ideal for those types, potentially going a bit different with the forward line with someone like Hollands. And Sam Draper, look, he could be anything. He could be absolutely anything. I'm not going to pick him. I don't have the cojones to do that. I did that a couple of years ago. Burnt me to an absolute crisp. So, not again. Not again. So, look, I think that's about a wrap. Like I said, I could only find 8 match reports. I think there was only 8 official match sims. So, I looked up on the GWS website, and Tommy Green was on fire. So, I thought I'd pass that on, but I'm sure you guys have already heard about it. But, yeah, that's a wrap. Not the most detailed wrap of all time from Shorty, but just a bit of a ramble style. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. I'll probably get this one out at about 10:30 at this rate, but I wanted to get it out before the weekend got too far away from us. So yeah, thanks very much for your support. I'll be looking to get another video probably around your Wednesday, Thursday mark, and another one over the weekend where we're just changing the structure a little bit. I used to love to get one out every second day, but full-time life has just changed things up a touch, and every 3 or 4 days is about what I'm aiming at now, trying to keep it all within reason. And if you haven't already, feel free to check out my TikTok. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but I do post more regularly on that just because they're minute videos. It's so easy to just go bang, smack a video up there. But nothing beats a good half-hour shorty video where we just ramble and just go about it as we please, which YouTube just allows us to do. So thanks again for all your support. I'll be back soon. Cheers.